What do you think here? Should we do 10 minutes of existential philosophy? Because you hear the word existentialism, you start going into dread, but I'm talking about the philosophy of it.
Okay, yeah. Hit me with that.
All right. What is existentialism, the philosophy?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's one school of thought, but I would say it is the way that you think, conceptualize, the way you interpret things that are, and I don't want to even use $10 words when I describe this. It's metaphysical and stuff, but things that go beyond natural world and maybe natural laws, and the way we think about things that aren't here, in a sense, and that are, I guess I'll use one, ephemeral, and in the same way that you could be like naturalism, or how we have philosophies about evolution and about the way animals are. This is about stuff that goes beyond what we can grasp, actually observe, and not only that, but to find meaning in these things that we don't understand, or that things that are maybe we can understand a little bit, but what the implications of them are. So what it means to die, what it means to live, what it means to be conscious, and what it means to even know your mortality. Like these things like that, where mortality is very, very real and it's very tangible, but the idea of what is its meaning, if it has one, that's the way I would consider it, is that it's about all those things that revolve around life, but that aren't necessarily contained in it. Like I said, it's funny, I like a quote about death, even though it's just, I don't know, self-explanatory, but death is the one thing we all do, but no one knows. So you can't report back on it.
Well, that's all incorrect.
Yeah.
No, yeah, there's some good stuff in there, and I like that. That's the general understanding of what an existentialist philosophy might be. Existentialism, as proper philosophy, is fundamentally, and you were getting at this, the subjective, individual attempt to wrestle with the fact that we exist in a cosmos we don't understand, that we are spat out into the world with a subjectivity that is a burden in some sense, a self-consciousness, a self-awareness. And how do we deal with that? And the first real existentialist was Soren Kierkegaard, and he was a Christian existentialist, and he introduced ideas like the leap of faith, totally committing yourself to something bigger than yourself, even if there isn't a reasonable, logical reason to do so. In his case, it was religious faith, but it could be any cause greater than you. And he famously said that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. And so this is where existentialism starts. The radical freedom of being alive. Now, we can immediately be like, what do you mean the radical freedom? There's so many ways that we're not free. We're not free to choose our genetics. We're not free to choose the point in history we're born into, our family, what we look like, our political system, our economic system, right, at an individual level.
Your own thoughts, some could say.
Your own thoughts. Literally, what you're going to think in the next 5 minutes, you have no control over. You can't even control whether or not you remember what you ate for lunch 3 days ago. You either do or you don't. You're not in control. So what do you mean by freedom? The existentialist claim, and this cuts to the heart of all existential philosophy, from Kierkegaard to Nietzsche to Sartre, Beauvoir, all the way up and through Camus.
The Violent J.
Violent J.
From Insane Clown Posse.
Magnets, how do they work?
Yep. That is,
is existential freedom, which is to say, in all the ways that we're not free, there is one way that we are always free. We can always choose how to respond to our situation. We can't control our situation, right? You find yourself in an executioner's block, right? Slated for execution. Whatever. You find yourself incredibly poor. You find yourself with a brutal disease. You find yourself with cancer. You have 3 months to live. You can't control any of that. What existentialists mean by freedom is you always have the freedom to choose how to respond to your situation.
So here's my thing, all right? I would contend that no, you don't. Because the way you respond to a thing, the way you dictate what your choices or actions, or even the way you conceptualize or think about it, or what meaning you take from it, or anything like that, comes from thoughts and intentions that you don't create. So how do you... I would love to choose to respond to shit much better. I'm not going to be... Even if I learn ways of doing it, what prompted me to learn how to do it?
Sure. Yes, that's a causal determinative take on free will, which is that every cause has a prior cause, and that even your idea that you could choose is actually a domino falling before it, and before that led to that choice that you even have in the first place. But ultimately, and there's some legitimacy, and that goes to the free will debate, but ultimately you are free right now to get up and to walk.
My torn ACL.
Well, you have a torn ACL. To crutch over and get in your car and drive to Florida,
South Dakota.
You can right now take a pen out of that fucking thing and stab yourself in the fucking eye. You could go out right now and decide to commit suicide. You could choose right now after this recording to go relapse. And you could say, well, I don't really...
I love how the one non-terrible thing, which is or go to Florida. I'm like, oh, okay,
no.
Probably killing myself then.
And you can say, well, if I did any of those things, that would be a previous cause. No, the truth is, deep down, you do have, in some sense, a radical freedom in this moment to choose how you respond. People listening right now, you could text your boss and say, I quit. You could choose. You could do that. And so we do actually have, even in we can argue about free will and whether we really have it or not, but in the actual reality of our lives, we have the freedom to choose. And what comes out of that is we have the freedom and the responsibility to choose who we are in this world. And you go through a thinker like Nietzsche, right? He talks about the death of God, the death of any meaning. And Nietzsche is a proto-existentialist because he says, in the wake of the death of God, without any metaphysical structure to give us values and meaning and purpose, it now becomes the job of every individual to forge his own meaning, values, and purpose. And Nietzsche thought many people would run away from that freedom, the freedom to choose your own values, meaning, and purpose, that it would retreat into various forms of what Nietzsche called nihilism, political cults, consumer aesthetics, hyper-nationalism, these retreats into other structures that can pre-package and give you a set of meanings, purposes, and values that you can plug into. Religion used to be the ultimate plug-in, but in the wake of the death of God, we have to find other things to plug into. And then you go through Sartre, and he talks about bad faith and authenticity. So, and what is bad faith? Bad faith is doing precisely that. Bad faith is handing over the freedom to radically become yourself and choose who you are to a prepackaged identity, social role, belief system, etc. So Sartre believed that you were behaving in bad faith when you refused to take the responsibility that comes with your freedom. The quintessential example, the Nazi guards at Nuremberg being tried for crimes said we were just following orders, right? You, in the moment you say, I did those things because I was just following orders. I am a guard playing a social role, and I was given orders, and my job as this thing is to follow those orders. You are giving away your authenticity, and you're acting in bad faith. You are living an inauthentic life that refuses to take freedom and responsibility seriously, right? So that's like a core idea that runs through everything. And then Simone de Beauvoir came along, and she collectivized it. She said, in order for anybody to be free, truly free, everybody else has to be free as well. That you cannot be free in a world where other people are enslaved, because we are all interconnected and inseparable, and the world we create is a collective world that we create together that has implications for all of us. And so if you want to be free and take your radical responsibility seriously, you have to also collectivize that and fight for other people's freedom. So Simone de Beauvoir, and you can find this in Sartre as well, but Simone de Beauvoir takes a very individualist philosophy. Kierkegaard is interested in individual subjectivity. Nietzsche is interested in the individual overcoming of the death of God and of nihilism and overcoming the herd. And Sartre is interested in individual authenticity and bad faith. And Simone de Beauvoir takes that and she collectivizes it and turns it into an existential responsibility to the freedom of yourself and others as a dialectically connected whole, right? So at the end of the day, existentialism is an ongoing philosophical terrain in which human beings wrestle with the freedom, and when we say freedom, we automatically also say responsibility of being a conscious, self-aware creature in the cosmos. And to live authentically is to take that freedom and the responsibility it necessitates seriously, and to become the sort of person that you want to be, that is the right thing to be, and that is more than anything genuine and sincerely you, right? That you do not hand over your authenticity to other ways of being and to other social identities or prepackaged structures of being.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, one of the things I believe the most that I do not want to believe, and the good part is I don't act like I believe it, like the way I act or behave, is it's going to come to it, the free will thing. You know, immediately as what you said was great and everything, you know, and I was truly listening, but I realized in the back of my mind the whole time, not meaning to, but the whole time I was just like, all that stuff you talk about when you are, especially if everyone else has to be free, but let's just put that out for a moment. If you are going to be free, you're going to decide what to do with it. You're not going to fall into bad faith. You're not going to. But what is creating your want or your ability or the inkling or the thought to even do anything like that? You know, like it is like in a way where I look at a lot of people, and I don't mean to always go back to this, but it has a lot of connections to life and to what we talk about. But I look at a lot of people in recovery or in addiction, and they, you know, they're just people that if I made it, anybody else can. But in this weird way, it's like not exactly. And it's not because of what you faced or whatever, you know, you fill out the whole trauma bingo card of all the terrible things that can happen to you or anything like that, but it's what your mind actually is. And how resilient you'll be is not, it's almost, I believe it, but I don't act like I do, and I don't like that I believe it, but I don't think you could choose how resilient you're going to be. I don't think you could choose how open-minded you're going to be. And I don't mean open-minded as like accepting other people's identities or culture stuff. I mean open-minded to even considering responding to this freedom.
Can you choose how to respond to your lack of resilience or your resilience?
No, not
if you're an undisciplined person or you don't have a lot of resilience, can you become aware of that and still have a choice on how do you respond to that? Do you just give in to the fact like I know, dude, I don't have resilience, I'll never be that sort of person?
Listen, I don't. That's why I don't act like it.
That's bad faith.
I don't act like it. I don't like it, and I don't like that I believe it. But the truth is, at least to me, in the sense, you said, so you're going to decide to be undisciplined or all that,
or no, how you respond to the fact that you think you're undisciplined.
How you respond to that? I don't mean to do turtles all the way down again, but what is instilled in you to respond in a way to understand, to become aware, to do this stuff is not something you made.
You choose, right?
That you choose. So even if you're presented with this information, maybe you get freedom in understanding all this stuff. And maybe you get more freedom in the way we, and I won't even get back into, I don't know, well, these people grew up here and they never had a chance. I won't do that type of determinism.
We've already accounted for that, right? There's so many ways we're unfree. We don't get to control any of that.
When I even talk about that stuff, I don't even mean that. I don't mean intelligence or your abilities, or I mean what is created within you to be the way that you are. Like the way you have not even just preferences, but why you thought to go and do something. You may thought of as like, well, I needed to, I was motivated, I was in passion. And that's why I bring it back to addiction, where a lot of times it's like, I just couldn't put up with it anymore. And I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's like, you were at that stage a bunch of times. This time you just kind of did it, which is awesome. But what I'm saying is I kind of use that as an analogy to where the things that just occur to people to do, or their want to do it, or even think to do it, they never make. So if you talk about being disciplined and pushing yourself, you could think that I'm not going to just because of what's in you to do that. And I don't just mean feelings or emotions, but the thoughts to do it, or the beliefs to do it. I think.
Okay, but David, you still, even though you have this abstract belief, and you could very well be right of this causal determinism that says that the sort of person that is disciplined, the sort of person that would even be interested in these ideas, the sort of person that would have the resilience to see them through is still beyond your control. The fact is,
or care about them,
whether that's true or not, you still operate in your life with this freedom and responsibility dialectic. Your want to get sober, your attempt to get sober, you can start abstracting away and being like, well, I don't even control that I want to get sober.
And I'm not doing that.
Okay,
I'm not doing that about that. I'm just using that as an example.
But I'm showing you that even though you have that background belief, that in the actual reality of your concrete life, you're still choosing how to respond to your addiction and to the situation that you don't control. You didn't control becoming an addict and having to wrestle with that as your life. But you're still not just giving up and saying, well, everything's just going to play out the way it plays out and I have no free will, so who cares? You are still acting and responding to your situation in a way that implies that in a way that actually matters, not in an abstract philosophical sense, but in the day-to-day choices you make, you are still making radical choices that are free and that come with responsibility to be the sort of person that keeps trying to get sober. And you can say, well, I don't even know why I'm the sort of person that tries to get sober. It doesn't matter. You are still in a situation you can't control and you wouldn't have chose. If you could go back and choose your life, you are still given the task. Right now you can choose, really deeply choose, and you can try to say, well, I don't know why I chose that. It doesn't matter. You can walk out of this shed and choose the relapse or choose to go home and not take a sip. You can still have that choice. And that's your radical existential freedom and your responsibility. Because the moment you say, actually, when I walk out of that door, I don't know if I can be sober or not. Who knows? I'll just be buffeted around by forces I don't control. That's bad faith. You're taking your responsibility and freedom and you're saying, I don't actually have it. Right? I am controlled by forces I can't see. I don't have any free will. And so whatever happens, happens. But you don't actually live that way.
I know I don't actually live. Like, this is purely a physical.
So existentialism, how do we actually live? But not just what we think.
But here's the thing. This is purely, I'm just talking straight terms of philosophy. I really don't live that way. But again, in this deep corner of my heart, it's what it seems the most reasonable or the most rational, is because you talk about that you could go outside and you could relapse, you could not relapse. But what is creating any of those thoughts or notions or impulses or wants or even care? Like, what creates a mind that cares? What creates a mind that doesn't care? What creates a mind that is just like, that's insane? Or that, I don't even mean just like, oh, you have mental illness. I mean, that just thinks about the world so differently that none of this shit matters. Like, they don't have any freedom. It's almost, you could think about like sociopaths in this case. Like, you know, but again, that you could say that's biological because of their brain chemistry. But I even go deeper than that. Like, what even creates that mindset to begin with? Like, what, and not just a mindset, but it's hard to, I'm not finding the right word, but what creates that sort of mental and emotional being the way it is to, I will pursue this, I won't pursue this, I'll care about it, I won't care about it, I won't be aware about it, I won't understand it. Like, in the way that you can't, like, I always thought a good example was like, you can't not understand that 2 + 2 = 4. Like, you could just say, no, I don't, or you could say, but in your heart of heart, you know 2 + 2, you can't not understand that.
Right.
You can't actually make yourself not. So I use that as like more towards the world. I can't not understand life the way it is because that's just how it occurred to me through fucking, I don't know what. And when you brought up why, I wanted to say that it's not about, I'm saying, well, I don't know why it happens. I don't, but I'm just saying what I do know is that I'm not doing it. Like, in a sense of that I've taken the reins and I go, I'm going to do it. Because in the same way that I can't, no matter what I do with the mind I have right now, I cannot understand that 2 + 2 = 4. You just move that to life. Move that to who you choose to love, who you choose to be, the way you think about life.
Here's my response. All the stuff that is determined in Buddhism and existentialism, there is the same response, which is if you manage, through the causal domino effect, to become aware of these things, if you can become aware of how your mind works, or you can become aware of this philosophy of freedom and responsibility, that awareness broadens out the horizon of things that you can understand, and then at that exact moment gives you the opportunity to abide by those rules, right? So if you don't know Buddhism, you don't know anything about how your mind works, meditation, anything like that, you can say, well, I'm just causally determined to think in this way. I compulsively think there's nothing I can do about it. The moment somebody sits you down and explains, hold on, this is how your mind works. This is a task that you can do to get better acquainted with how your mind works. And here's a practice you can conduct to overcome that problem. Your awareness has expanded, and so your capability of doing that has expanded.
Right.
So the moment I teach you about existentialism, you walk out of that door, and you now have a broadened awareness of choice and freedom that you can actually practically act on, regardless of what's true about the nature of the world and your brain and cause and effect and free will.
I wouldn't say it's a full rebuttal, but the one thing I would say to that is that, yes, you could get that information, and now you could actually understand that. That could open up, but as far as the way you live, you can't control if you care about it or not. Like, I can't control, like, I could know this stuff, and now I can improve my life with this stuff, but what created my care for it or my lack of care for it? Like, believe me, I want to care about a lot of things in my life, so I do them. I want to care about them so much that I become this super person that helps everybody else out. I just don't control what I care about. And so even if you gave me like all the tools to figure out these equations and all the stuff I didn't know before, and now you could do this algebra of life that you weren't aware to do, I still don't. What if I don't give a shit? I wish I did. And me even thinking about it, I wish I did, but I don't. You don't like. I guess I yammer
then
too
I
much.
guess at that point the conversation would just end because that
Right.
that person's not open to it. But I think there are many, many more people who do care about how they live their lives, are interested in like what can I do in this world of constraint, and how do I respond to my raw existence. I think people would be interested in that. And somebody says, "Oh, I don't care at all about that." Okay, there's nothing you can really say to them. I guess I'm talking to somebody else at that point. You know?
Right.
You know
I
what
know.
I'm saying?
And like I said, this
But I
is-
think you do care.
I know.
So even if you're causally determined, you now have a new heuristic device by which to interpret your behavior going forward, and the bad faith authenticity dialectic kind of continuously reinforces inside yourself, hold on, am I acting in bad faith? Am I doing this thing because it is the predetermined cause, or because it's frictionless, or because I'm trying to play a social role? I can now think in those terms. So instead of just being passively dominated by those forces, my awareness of those forces gives me a certain sort of expanded view to make more expanded choices, which is a different way to respond, right? Just like Buddhism gives you a different way to respond to your compulsive thinking because you have now expanded your awareness of how that operates, right? Oh, this emotion of anger, I just act on it. I act on it. Okay,
Right.
I practice Buddhism. Now I'm aware of the dynamics of anger as they're arising. I now have the radical choice of, do I want to act on this, or do I want to drop below conceptual thought and feel it as an emotion until it goes away? Well, because of studying and understanding and expanding awareness, you now have a choice that previously you never even had.
Right.
You know, and that's the expansion of freedom itself.
And I cannot stress this enough. This is not a philosophy to which I live my life by any
Yeah.
means. It would be
I
fucking
like it a lot.
miserable.
Yeah.
But like again, and this may seem shitty. It really isn't shitty, but this is I'm just telling you, this is what I can't. I wish I could just fucking erase from my mind. But when you talked about like now you have the information and what do you want to do as far as the choices that you have, and it seems shitty, but again, it's real. You don't control what you want to do. And again, I know that's where the conversation is when you talk about you don't control what you want or what you care or anything like that. But that's where it gets me in a way, but not in a way that I actually guide my life by. Like I said, if you know me,
Well,
I don't fucking live my life.
I think that's the point. It's impractically abstract. That might be true, but it actually doesn't have any practical traction with how we actually live our lives, and in the ways that we actually live our lives, which is what existentialism is concerned about. Those are still live options,
Right?
And you will practically walk out of that shed and have that apparatus inform, you know, what you do. You're not actually living your life in a way that you feel like you are just being dominated by a cause and effect, and you have no agency whatsoever.
No, because I mean, honestly, too. Let's say if you wanted to say that's the way things are and then live that way. You're still, even if you say that, you're still going against the ultimate theory because you're making a choice to do that, and you say I wouldn't have the choice anyway. So you know, like
That's
so
good. That's
it's,
good.
It's like it's like I said, I don't act like I don't believe it. It's just, and I say it's not a hot take for hot take's sake. I mean, that's probably why I have some of the existential shit. Is that it is sitting back there and it seems reasonable to me, and no matter how much I know it's self-defeating and stupid and pointless, you know. It still seems reasonable. Like it's still, I get it in a way that makes sense.